How's it going? Trey Clark here, as I usually am. I'm going to jump right into this, as I usually do. I've been talking a lot about the camera and the pictures that they used on the moons. A couple of problems we have there. The ones I've been talking about the most is the brightness on the moon using the inverse squared law. Any photographer that does any manual pictures, especially back with film, has to know what their f-stops are, and all that has to do with is you need to know how bright something is, because all you can see is your viewfinder. You don't know what the film is going to expose. Now we have digital films, or digital cameras now, DSLRs. Back then, they only had, obviously, there was no programmed auto. I think there might have been some autofocus, but they used the Hasselblad 500 EL, I think. And all the E means in the electric is that it winded the film to the next shot. Now, a couple of things before I do the real reason why I know those pictures were not taken the way they said they were is one, they used too much film. They said that over the Apollo mission, and the same website that was given that information linked to the NASA website is gone now. That's a red flag right there. But roughly, I'm being very generous with this. A picture was taken roughly every 30 seconds. Originally it was 9 seconds, the entire 3 days it was there. Okay, so that's a lot of film. And so I'm going to get to that. They used a Hasselblad camera with no viewfinder here. This is a P900, so I'm not going to be able to do I wanted to do a demonstration of how hard it is to not look through a viewfinder, but you can do it. But, I mean, you would have to train as a photographer for a really long time to be trusted to go up to the moon and come back with those kind of pictures. And these are military pilots. These are not professional photographers. Matter of fact, you would need a professional photographer that was just as competent they could be, and I bet the chances of them coming back with something a million times brighter as it is here. We don't have film that can go through that. And also trust that they know how to get the film through the radiation belts. What I'm going to do here is try and adjust this camera that I know well. It's a P900. It's got the tiny dials and all this, and I'll post pictures of the Hasselblad, but it's got a manual setting here. So I'm going to try and find a couple of things. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to be very generous with this. I'm going to put on 2 pairs of gloves, sort of very easy to work with bicycle gloves. And the only other thing I'm going to put on top of that, not a pressurized glove that's going to save me from the vacuum of space, just a regular old garden glove, okay? Now, if you're a photographer, I want you to try and work especially if you work with film, not just take pictures, but change a roll of film, because they were not going back in, decompressing the lunar module, decompressing their suits, changing film, and coming back out, okay? They could not do that. Just didn't happen. I don't care how many letters you have by your name on the wall, how long your brother worked at NASA, no one can do this with the technology and the cameras that they were using. No one. Okay. So, this is nothing compared to, I can still move okay. Also know they couldn't see down. And if they could, there's no viewfinder anyway. Now, it wasn't a camera like this. It was more, it had a trigger on it, okay? And I'm guessing they didn't have, so I'm not going to fault them for this. They didn't have the trigger guard there. So this is more what it would look like, something like that. And it was about right there from what I can tell. So as they're moving, they can't see. And here's all the things that have to go into taking a good picture. Just think about doing it on the brightest sand, the whitest sand or snow on the brightest of days, and not be able to read your exposure digitally, which they couldn't do back then. So they had to go to a new environment in a new, the moon, which should be about, well, just do your own, just use the inverse squared law, take a full moon, the super moon, if it's clear, call that 1 lumen, give or take a quarter lumen, and just look it up, figure it out yourself. Okay, so I'm going to look down to get my bearing. Now imagine you've got all the stuff going on and you can barely move and you're doing all this stuff, and Buzz Aldrin is climbing down. Are you good, NASA? Are you good? Okay, there's Buzz. I have no idea if he's in focus. Okay, I can barely, now, I can feel it turning, and I'm cheating because I'm looking. I'm going to find my starting point. I'm going to just try and find auto, and I'm imagining, and theirs were on the sides. I'll post a picture of it to where you had to find your aperture, and then this, and everything had to be right. And the reason I know that is because the pictures were absolutely beautiful. That only comes from someone. Okay, that looks good. Stand still. Boom. You don't get those pictures. You just don't. I've done enough of this. And so let's say that they went through more training in photography than they ever did on flying planes and astronaut training. There's still people more suited to do that, and they wouldn't be able to do it. I'm sorry. Then just go, okay, time for a new roll of film. Can't see the deal. The cartridge, don't expose it. Okay, I'm sorry, it's not. You connect all the dots. And look, even if they went to the moon, which I don't think they did, but let's say they did. They faked the pictures. The pictures are not real, which means that the pictures aren't real. That means that they can lie about anything. So if they lie, they're liars. So if you want to come in and say that you know for a fact that, oh, yeah, well, they had to do that just because they couldn't get good pictures and they wanted us to believe it, that's bullshit. That's not an excuse. That means that you are committing fraud. Okay, they've sold those pictures to Time Magazine, all that stuff. So they presented them to us on a military mission on taxpayer money as real. So regardless of what you want to say about whether we win or not, those pictures are fraudulent because it couldn't be more forgiving. You watch them try and just do this, and they go out on their spacewalks. And speaking of spacewalks in those gloves, why the hell is there so much stuff on the outside of the craft? Have you ever seen a submarine where they're like, other than welding maybe, divers have to go out there, we have to do the some kind of thing, and they film it. All they do is just move this latch to there, that latch to that. They have a wrench, and they never really show you exactly what they're doing. They never give you a breakdown of, okay, we're going to go out here. This goes into this system, because they can't, because it wouldn't make any sense at all. While we would have all those mechanical parts on the outside, years before we ever even did our first spacewalk. Why would we do that? And how have we not, after all this time, replaced a single solar panel? They're supposed to be 12 to 15 years tops, and that's on Earth. And this was the technology from whenever it went up, 85? And none of them have ever been damaged. We've never worked on the solar panels. They call them, what are they? Solarplex, reverse solarplex, and they have all this jargon, and they never tell you exactly what they're doing. They just kind of say, well, something like, well, we need to do 12, then another 11.5, and then when they move on, and then you just, you figure they know what they're doing. But it's just fraud, and we know that it's fraud. And it's okay if you haven't caught it, but whatever you do, instead of just doing the usual, oh, whatever, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I do. I'm a photographer, okay? I have had plenty of education in science. I have done science. I haven't floated weightless cabbage, but I know plenty about molecular biology. I made it to Organic 1 in college. Not saying that I'm an expert on it. I couldn't teach a class on it, but I know my shit to an extent, more than your average person. So before you start thinking, well, and there's no upside to figuring this stuff out. I would love nothing more than for someone to go, no, Trey, here, let me show you. I'm going to pressurize these gloves. I'm going to take that camera, and you can shut the fuck up forever. But no one ever does that. Once it gets pressed, or if I say, okay, it wasn't that bright on the moon. How bright was it? And then you'll just get a formula. No one will give you, well, it's 100 times brighter, which we could probably handle with that, but not with an f.5, an f-stop of 5.6. That's what it's set. The preset on the camera is set for what would be on a bright sunny day here. So all these things don't add up. There's too many things. You couldn't do it in a million years with the people that were there. First try, change the film, get the good pictures with the gloves on. No way. And then get through the radiation belts. To me, it's probably, if you focus on the camera and the exposures and the pictures and the lighting and all that stuff, that's where the smoking gun is, okay? It's too complicated as far as, they can get the chalkboard out and go, no, this is how rockets can actually, transverse with the spin of the earth and all that stuff, because we don't have rockets, if we're doing this. What we do have is cameras, and we use the same physics that physicists do. They don't get to have their own math. We get to use it too. And this isn't complicated. The inverse squared law is not complicated at all. So, and they want to say, well, you just don't know. One person who claimed to be a physicist, I almost laughed, said, well, the surface and they gave me the molecular structure of what moon dust is, as if the shiniest surface should affect this inverse squared law differently. Obviously, I knew he knew nothing of what he was talking about. He just thought that I didn't. So, and I'm not claiming to be a physicist, but a physicist that uses a camera knows if they're going to use the same math. Exactly. All this does is automate it. So, but you didn't used to. Once I first started out, you had to know the inverse squared law. You did have readings on the cameras once the SLRs came out, the film ones, but you had to kind of figure it out. You had to know that each distance cut the light source down by 4 or up by 4. A difference of 4 whether you're moving closer or back. And so anyway, pay attention to it. Then imagine a motorcycle helmet that you can't see down in, no viewfinder, no nothing, fumbling for all this stuff. Hey, Buzz, hey, why don't you ride around on that dune buggy? And then the one that was left behind, the camera that was left behind, panned up, remote control, 240,000 miles away, perfect focus for the most part, as good as any movie studio back then, pans up, and then out, or pans in as it goes away. So it just, no. At some point, people are gonna, even people I know that are like, all right, dude, maybe there's something there. And then I've talked to so many people that were just calling me an idiot 2 years ago going, okay, I'll give you we didn't go to the moon, but we definitely went to Mars. I'm like, come on. So, but the ISS is real. I've seen it. I'm like, you saw a football stadium size object with the naked eye, 250,000 miles away, going 17,500 miles an hour. That's what you saw. You looked up, or you've seen satellites. They're the size of a Volkswagen, going 17,500 miles an hour, 250 miles away. That's what you saw. Not a high altitude plane, but that's what you really want to, that's the hill you want to die on. I'm going to stay off of your hill. Cheers, guys.
Chris and Jody were the real thing. A quarterback and a beauty queen. You know, he's gonna marry her someday. But things got complicated around the time they graduated. See, Jody had her mind set on LA. Chris liked to drop his jaw the day he got that phone call. She was heading out to dig her toes into that West Coast sand. She said, man, you know it would be a sin to let this small town hold me in. A good old boy like you wouldn't understand. She said, my love, wish me well, but don't forget me. There's got to be a pot of gold to find. And you know there ain't no dreams to chase around in Abilene. You know I think that I'd best leave or lose my mind. Jody caught a bus out west, got a job as a waitress selling cappuccino lattes down on Sunset Boulevard. Chris's heart grew weak. He wrote her letters every week, and no one could have seen he'd fall so hard. Jody met a guitar man playing bass for a local band. She got all tangled up into that LA music scene. And Chris got a card one day from his lost love out in LA, and he read it from the farm in Abilene. And it said, "My love, wish me well, but don't forget me. That pot of gold I still have yet to find." And you know there ain't no dreams to chase around in Abilene. I think I had to leave or lose my mind. And that LA sun turned into rain, and she found out she liked cocaine. That guitar boy would take her nowhere fast. The moon was bright and the club was dark. The night that powder stopped his heart, and she broke down like shards of broken glass. Time passed like money spent. The cocaine took the place of rent. She moved out to the street with just her clothes. She never had intentions of doing things that I won't mention, but she took her life the night she lost her soul. And Chris got one last postcard on a Tuesday afternoon, and he could tell each word she wrote with trembling hands. She said, "Man, you know it's a crazy world, and I guess I'm just a small town girl. Hope a good old boy like you can understand." She said, "My love, I hope you will not forget me, but there ain't no pot of gold out here to find. You stay there and chase your dreams, 'cause LA sure ain't Abilene. You know, I think that I'd best leave or lose my mind. You know, I think that I'd best leave or lose my mind." Chris and Jody were the real thing, a quarterback and a beauty queen. You know, he's gonna marry her someday.